Today is the wedding day of my precious only daughter. My daughter Grace was always bright and dedicated in everything she did. Since graduating from high school, she must have had her share of fun times, but she also faced an equal amount of challenges and struggles. Having overcome those experiences, I'm genuinely happy to see her smiling next to her groom, Chris Miller. Before the ceremony began, I was reminiscing over old memories while sipping coffee at the Venue's Cafe, inspired by my beloved high school teacher. After graduating from a renowned university, I declined a job offer from a top tire company to become a high school teacher. To this day, I still remember how thrilled I was to receive an offer from such a prestigious company. But, just like my mentor, I was determined to teach the younger generation about the joy of learning and wanted to inspire them for the future, so I chose to be a teacher. Initially, there were many challenges as everything was new, but I threw myself into the job with all I had. Perhaps my dedication paid off, as gradually, students began to say things like "I'm glad Mr. Brown taught me," words that are the ultimate compliment for any teacher. I was blessed with wonderful students and colleagues and thought I'd serve till retirement. However, an unfortunate incident forced me to resign. While I was fortunate to have many supportive colleagues, there was one, Mr. William, who always seemed to have a snide remark ready for me. I respected Mr. William, who had achieved notable success as a track and field coach, but it seemed he didn't feel the same about me. According to what I heard from my colleague, he was jealous seeing the admiration I received from other teachers and students and saw me as a rival. Being unaware of Mr. Williams' feelings, I deeply regret causing a commotion that involved not only colleagues but indirectly some precious students. The school I worked at had a long history of producing top-tier athletes across various sports. The track and field team that Mr. William coached was among them, guiding numerous promising athletes every day. While Mr. William was passionate, Mr. William had the athletes undergo rigorous training to perform in competitions. While many could keep up, at one point, one of the athletes suffered a severe injury due to the excessive training, essentially ending his sports career. Eventually, the student had to quit the team. Having counseled that student occasionally, I deeply regretted not having understood the situation better, which might have prevented this outcome. Feeling responsible, I decided to resign a few years after the batch I was mentoring graduated. Despite the challenges, a few years after my resignation, I received delightful news from Grace that she met someone she wanted to marry. She had met him by coincidence at a hospital, and they got attracted to each other's personalities and decided to get married. And they planned to visit their parents' home soon to formally introduce him.
Dad, it's been a while. I'm sorry for all the trouble over the years.
Don't say that. Just seeing you happy and healthy is enough for me.
Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Chris Miller, and I've been seeing Grace.
Nice to meet you, Chris. I've been looking forward to seeing you. Grace's fiancé, Chris, was a friendly and genuine young man. Seeing him earnestly expressing his intentions to marry Grace made me feel that he's the right one for her. Thanks to you, Chris, I get to see such a happy face on Grace. I truly appreciate it. Please take care of my daughter.
Yes, sir. I promise you to make Grace happy.
Let's get happy together, Chris.
Seeing Grace and Chris laughing wholeheartedly, both my wife and I couldn't help but smile. Finishing my coffee and reminiscing about the past, I went to pay the bill and headed to the wedding venue. While I was feeling a mix of sadness and joy about my lovely daughter's new chapter, I was suddenly stopped by a familiar voice.
Well, isn't that Mr. Brown?
Turning around, I saw my former colleague, Mr. William. I was momentarily speechless seeing his face for the first time since my resignation. What a coincidence. It's good to see her well.
What have you been up to since leaving? I assume finding a job in the private sector after being a public servant wasn't easy.
It was a challenge, but now I'm teaching at a tutoring school near my home.
Oh, was that so? That sounds tough. Did your salary decrease? Are you struggling?
Yes, my pay did decrease. but I'm happy to be in a job where I can interact with students now. Looking at my reaction, Mr. William seemed displeased, his words tinged with a hint of sarcasm. He's always been a bit condescending, and I felt downhearted to be treated this way even on my daughter's special day.
Oh, by the way, are you here for a wedding today?
Yes, it's actually my daughter's wedding.
No kidding. What a coincidence. My own daughter's getting married this afternoon.
Congratulations. What a remarkable coincidence.
Yeah, truly. Oh, by the way, my daughter's marrying a very talented man who works for a major corporation. I guess it's all thanks to her being so outstanding. Did your daughter find a decent partner, Mr. Brown?
Yes, of course. My daughter is very responsible, so I've left such matters to her.
I see. Well, I can probably guess. But anyway, congratulations on her wedding.
Thank you very much. I could tolerate him making fun of me, but not my daughter. Trying to keep my composure on this joyous occasion for my daughter, I bid Mr. William a quick farewell, intending to head to the waiting room. Just then, there was a commotion outside the venue. Luxury cars began to pull up one after another. Celebrities and socialites in dazzling outfits started walking into my daughter's wedding venue.
What on earth is going on? Why are they heading to your daughter's wedding?
It turns out they're acquaintances of Grace's fiancé, Chris. I was surprised when I first heard too.
What do you mean? I thought your daughter was marrying just an average office worker.
Please calm down, Mr. William. Mr. William, increasingly flustered, approached me closely. Just then, Grace stepped in between us and called out to us.
Dad, Mr. William, what's going on?
Grace, with a worried look on her face, and Chris are coming our way.
Chris Miller.
Yes, the famous figure skater, Chris Miller. To our delight, he's marrying our daughter.
Why didn't you tell me? Did you deliberately keep silent about your daughter's fiancé to humiliate me?
I truly apologize for not mentioning it, but Chris, being an internationally renowned athlete, has unique circumstances. Grace and Chris decided it would be best not to publicize it too much. I'm sorry for not telling you the truth. Mr. William looked down, speaking in a choked voice. His clenched fist was white-knuckled. It reminded me of the day I retired and when a student athlete quit the track team.
You still hate me, don't you?
Mr. William, why such a sudden question? There's no such feeling.
Just as I was at a loss for words, Grace stepped forward.
Mr. William, it's been a while.
Grace, didn't you want to avoid seeing me, especially on your wedding day? After all, I'm the coach you despise, the one who ruined your athletic future.
I clenched my fist. The student at the heart of the incident leading to my resignation was none other than my daughter, Grace. She had been a promising track athlete, even competing at national levels during middle school. After entering our high school, known for its strong track team, she was under Mr. Williams' guidance. If only I had listened more closely to her stories about coming home late from practice. If I had asked Mr. William about my daughter as a student and as a father back then, such regret would come flooding back.
I don't hold any grudges against you anymore, Mr. William.
Grace looked directly at Mr. William, her voice firm.
Yes, I did resent you when I couldn't compete anymore. I was devastated, not knowing where to channel my frustrations. That's why I quit the team and even transferred to another school. But as time passed and I got some perspective, I realized that you believed in my potential more than anyone else.
Grace.
Even when I was in a slump, you never gave up on guiding me. Even when I couldn't achieve results in the tournaments, you would stay up late, always thinking of new training routines for me. Of course, your coaching was strict, and it was genuinely tough. I even ended up getting injured in the end, but it's because you nurtured me as an athlete that I am who I am today. Thank you so much, Mr. William. I'm truly grateful that you were my mentor.
Grace said, expressing her gratitude with the same smile she had since high school. Seeing her smile, you could feel that she held no resentment towards Mr. William. On the contrary, her gratitude towards him was evident.
I should be the one apologizing.
Mr. William, with tears at the corners of his eyes and a pained expression, apologized.
I've always regretted it. I think if I'd noticed your struggles, Grace, I wouldn't have pushed you so hard in training. I feel like I did something to you that was unforgivable. When I realized I might have taken away your potential as an athlete, I was scared of facing criticism and ran away. Even today, I was afraid to talk to you directly and was rude to both you and Mr. Brown. I truly feel I failed as a teacher.
Mr. William, please look up and smile. It's my big day after all.
Grace said with a gentle smile. Hearing her words, Mr. William closed his eyes tightly for a moment, then smiled at Grace, saying, "Thank you." As Grace returned to the venue, I was left alone with Mr. William. As I pondered what to discuss, William hesitantly began speaking.
I also want to apologize to Mr. Brown.
Huck told me as well.
Yes, actually.
As I pondered what to discuss, Mr. William hesitantly began speaking. Initially, he had respected me as a teacher and even aspired to be like me one day. However, he became frustrated and envious when he felt he couldn't catch up to me. He began to believe that by producing results as a coach, he was a superior teacher. Mr. William, perhaps we should have talked more. While you saw me as a benchmark, I've always respected you.
Mr. Brown.
The fact is, while some of your training methods might have been extreme, you've always done your best for the students. Many have gone on to be successful athletes, and many are grateful to you, including Grace. As I pondered what to discuss, Mr. William hesitantly began speaking.
Mr. Brown, I truly apologize for everything. I understand I am in no position to say this, but would you forgive me?
His earnest words struck a chord with me. Seeing the teacher in that state, my answer was naturally decided. Of course, I have always respected you. Hearing this, a bright smile appeared on Mr. Williams' face, reminiscent of his days as a dedicated teacher. With our misunderstandings cleared, we both walked back to the wedding venue with a light-hearted demeanor.